us all the latest details. In the meanwhile, Gargi, yet another petition. So 3 already done. Here is the 4th one that we have got to know about and would like that. This is as far as Mathura is concerned. The latest information that we are getting is, and this comes from our colleague Ashish Bhargav. He says, ज्ञानवापी मस्जिद के बाद मथुरा श्री कृष्ण जन्मस्थान से सटी शाही ईदगाह मस्जिद को भी फौरन सील करके वहां भी सर्वे कराने की मांग. It seems, I don't know why, that there is some coordinated strategy where you've got a petition in Gyanvapi, you've got another petition now as far as Mathura is concerned. Basically,
and all while we're waiting for the Supreme Court to come up with the hearing
while
there.
The Supreme Court proceedings are going to continue, you have all these various petitions coming in yet to be accepted. In the Mathura Civil Court, this petition has been filed that like the Gyanvapi Masjid, the Shahi Eidgah Mosque also must be sealed and a survey be conducted to find out whether there was a temple inside or not. It says कानून के छात्र और वकील ने दाखिल की याचिका तुरंत सुनवाई कराने की गुहार. So this is an important point that has come about.
Right, and more of these petitions are going to come up, and but today we're going to see what the Supreme Court, whether they will talk about the Places of Worship Act, which is what is being cited by the Mosque Management Committee in the Supreme Court, where they have gone and petitioned against the survey being conducted in the mosque area in the first place, saying that they are protected under the Places of Worship 1991 Act, that places that were, will status quo will be maintained at all religious places since 1947. Since what they were at the time of independence. But that act itself, of course, being questioned by many in the BJP, and even at the time that it was, Sanket has been pointing out, when it was passed by the Narasimha Rao government, the BJP in fact walking out. So it all boils down to what the Supreme Court will say regarding the survey currently in the Gyanvapi Mosque, and whether they'll reiterate that act, the Places of Worship Act. But we're also now joined on the program by a political analyst and Congress supporter Tehseen Poonawalla and the Supreme Court lawyer Aashutoshsrivastava, someone who supports the BJP. And Ashutosh, you were with us earlier. We've been recounting what happened in the court in Varanasi. We're still waiting for that decision. Meanwhile, the hearing in the Supreme Court also taking place. And in the meantime, as Sanket just read out, there's another petition now concerning the mosque at Mathura. So this was the fear that more and more, it's a Pandora's box that will be opened if all these petitions are admitted.
The petitions which are filed in different courts obviously will depend on the merit of each and every case. It is not that once a case is filed and it will be entertained. But yes, if there is merit in the case, if there is sufficient evidence, to showcase what they are trying to pray from the court, then it can be entertained by court, considering the aspects of the case and the facts of the case. I see that is something, it is not a Pandora box or something. The constitution of our country gives the citizens rights to approach the court if they feel that their fundamental rights are violated, or if they have been deprived of certain rights which they are eligible for. And now it is the court which is supposed to see that the petitions which are filed is as per the principles of law, and it is not violative of any provisions in force. And if there is merit, the court may entertain those kind of cases. So it is not like otherwise there is no point of having courts. The court is only to give justice, and if somebody feels that justice has to be meted out, can approach the court. If the court feels that there is no merit in the case, can reject.
There'll be so many such cases, that will then, come up across the country. Tehseen Poonawalla, it's in, the news really right now, the news cycle all about this Gyanvapi Mosque and the, survey and what the lower court, this local court is saying, and awaiting what the Supreme Court will say. And this at a time when, there's so many other big issues also concerning the country right now.
Good afternoon, Gargi, Sanket, my fellow panelists and all your viewers. And you're right, Gargi. At a time when WPI inflation has hit 15%, the highest since it's been introduced 7 years ago, at a time when our economy is contracting and we are the highest trade deficit in our country, These issues are being, as Sanket said rightly, coordinated and created only to divert attention. Now let's go to the merits of the case. But before we go to that, let's have a hypothetical assumption. Hypothetically, let's assume that there was a temple there before a mosque came out. Let's assume. So when did this happen? 200, 300, 400 years ago, before we were a constitutional democracy, and now we have the POW Act 1991, the Places of Worship Act. Do we now, in a constitutional democracy, go back to what happened 300, 400 years ago, rather than focus on our constitutional democracy and our law of the land today? But let's understand what's happening at Gyanvapi, because that's what I want to focus on. The petitioners on the side of those claiming that there is that was a temple or there's a shivling found, with great respect to them, an entire atmosphere was created yesterday without an official report saying, look, something was found underneath the fountain and this was a shivling. Now mind you, this is not an official report. This is a claim made by the site that is saying that there is a temple that exists there. The court hasn't accepted it. It's not scientific. They've made a claim when they're not supposed to hear when they're not supposed to speak to the media. The court in a hurry passes a judgment without even hearing the other side, and an entire atmosphere before the Honorable Supreme Court hears it. How is this even allowed? How is this even legal? And I hope that these matters are brought up today before the Honorable Supreme Court. So somewhere down the line, an atmosphere has been coordinated and created only to divert attention from the whole.
Are you saying, Tessie, before you attribute this to me, the point is I only asked a question. From your assessment, it appears as if you conclude that all these petitions that are being filed are not to seek a legal remedy, but to seek a political remedy.
Yes, a legal remedy cannot exist because there exists the POW Act 1991. So you cannot have a legal remedy. What are you going to do? Like I said, hypothetically, let's assume it was a temple. It's not true, but let's assume.
But then many lawyers who are affiliated with the BJP are questioning the validity of the Places of Worship Act also.
No. Yeah, they are. This is the same Bharatiya Janata Party whose chief minister, and I say this with respect and with confidence, was sent to jail for contempt of court by the Honorable Supreme Court, a sitting chief minister, because he promised the Honorable Supreme Court in a written affidavit that nothing will happen to a structure, and the structure was demolished. And the Supreme Court held up the POW Act as recently as 2 years ago, when the Ram Mandir judgment was given, it held it up. So now,
what about Mr. Srivastav? Mr. Srivastav right now, he says that there are a number of exceptions to the Places of Worship Act, and that also will be brought to the purview of the law.
There are no exceptions. The only exception was, Mr. Srivastav, just 10 seconds, the only exception in the Act, and I read this Act inside out, was the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid area.
Ashutosh, do you want to come in
there is no exception. Show me the paragraph.
Educate us about those exceptions, please.
With the paragraph and where it's put, with the point.
Yes, he was talking about it just a while ago. Tessie wants to know what are the exceptions, Ashutosh.
The paragraph
my friend himself agreed that if that temple was existing 300, 400 years ago, now my friend can understand and he can see the act which is ancient monument and archaeological sites. See, there are different paragraphs. You read section 4. You read section 4 and its exception. You just read it out. Secondly, 1 minute. Secondly, you said that you are trying to politicize the courts. You are saying the courts are doing politics. This is completely, I think, disregard to the courts. This has never been, such order has never been passed by any government. It has been passed by the court. The court has asked for the survey, not any political party. So I think some of the politicians, they should be clear about what they are saying to the people of this country. You mean to say that the courts are doing politics? They are involved into politics.
Okay, Ashutoshji,
the court has passed the order.
The political one.
One more thing. One more thing.
You were talking about silence. Otherwise, I'll outshout you. My submission here is, you said that there are exceptions to the Places of Worship Act 1991. Can you please educate our viewers and Tehseen Poonawalla what those exceptions are?
See, the first exception, as I said, was Ram Janmabhoomi, which my friend agreed also, and accordingly Supreme Court decided. Now, the other exceptions are, the first exception is that if any place has changed its character after 15th August 1947, then in that case the provisions of the Places of Worship Act will not apply. Now the second exception is that if a place or a historical monument is more than 100 years old, and if it comes under the provisions of the Ancient Monument and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958, then in that case also the provisions of this particular Act of 1991, that is the Worship Act, will not apply. Now the court has to ascertain whether these falls under those exceptions or not. The court is not deciding overnight. The court is asking for a survey, the report. What does the report say? Based on that report, the court will take a final decision. The court has not passed any judgment. The court is only asking for a survey.
The Supreme Court as well, but Tehseen Poonawalla, in fact, the Hindu Sena has come into the matter in the Supreme Court with this very same contention, saying that the Gyanvapi Mosque and this Kashi Vishwanath, the temple complex, etc., are exempt from the Places of Worship Act because they, according to them, it falls under the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act, and so they're exempted from this. We're not sure right now. I'm not a lawyer, so we'll have to wait and see what, and that's what Ashutosh is saying and what the Supreme Court will say.
Look,
we'll have to wait for what the Supreme Court will say. Yes.
We should wait for what the Supreme Court says, and that is exactly what my criticism of the court has been, the lower court. It should have waited for the Supreme Court. A side makes a claim that something is found in Gyanvapi. They then go and declare it to the media. Based on it, without hearing the other side, the lower court passes an order to seal off the place, and the other side isn't heard. In my opinion, this is wrong judgment. In my opinion, it is also wrong that the courts are reopening cases when it is being barred by the Places of Worship Act. It is fine to come on national television and that's eloquence on some exception that does not exist written in the Act, because you're not able to tell me the clause or the number in Section 4. However, Section 4 of the Act 1 or Section 4.3e, I can easily tell you what it says, and Section 4.3e says very categorically, any conversion of any place effected before such commencement, which is of the Act, which is not liable to be challenged in any court, tribunal or any other authority, being barred by limitation under the law for the time being in force. It prevents it. But now to come in here and say no, there are exceptions to the Act is purely speculative, if not misleading. I'm just making one appeal to the citizens of India and to the viewers of NDTV. We can keep being divided on what existed 300 years ago, or we can look at what's happening to our country now. Our economy is contracting, we have joblessness, we have a high trade deficit, and we have WPI inflation at 15%. Who benefits from this hate? Neither is OAC's kids, neither is Amit Shah's kids going to be on the roads fighting. It is our kids who are going to suffer. Think about what I'm saying. Save our country.
All right, Ashutosh, that was...
Now I read, yes, my friend asked me to read the relevant clause.
So let me read that clause.
Yes. Please see Section 4. And subsection 3, I'm just reading it out.
And point
I just read that Places of Worship Act. It says, nothing contained in subsection 1 and subsection 2 shall apply to any place of worship referred to in the said subsections which is an ancient and historical monument or an archaeological site or remains covered by the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958. This is what I said. My learned friend should read the paragraphs and the law. Now the second, B.
Now, please allow me to rebut that.
Appeal or other proceeding. Yes.
Okay,
what I said.
Allow me to rebut that.
It comes under the exception.
Allow me to rebut that.
We'll have to wait and see what the Supreme Court says.
No. Sir, this will be interpreted by the court now. I am not going to the interpretation part. I am only talking about the law.
This is not the law.
I showed you.
Again, you are misleading. Why are you not reading subsection E of the same clause which I read? Because it is limited by the time limitation. Now you are going back into renewing exception when it clearly says that it is barred by time limitation.
Who will decide the survey report will
the time limitation is
on the channel?
Who will decide, my friend?
That is why Scarat has been ordered.
Father's property.
Now this report will clarify. You yourself.
Can I come and say 300 years ago your land was owned by your grandfather?
All right, we'll have to wait and see what the Supreme Court, we're waiting for that hearing. The matter is going to come up soon. But the point also, Ashutosh, while you're talking about why you feel this should be accepted and why this whole plea around this Gyanvapi Mosque is something that is... that is something that is acceptable, but the question really is, the point about this will really open up other cases as well. Already, Mathura, there's a petition regarding Mathura. There's already, luckily the petition around the Taj Mahal was struck down very strongly by the High Court. And then you have in Delhi around the Qutub Minar also now questions are being raised. Already local channels carrying some statements regarding Jama Masjid in Delhi as well. So, there's no end to these kind of petitions that will then come up.
Yes, I do feel if there is merit in the case, it will be entertained. That is why we have the courts. We cannot just decide sitting, at a place or in a debate that this is right or this is wrong. That is why the courts are there. The courts have been established as per the principles laid down in the Constitution of India.
The courts are functioning accordingly. Political in nature. I want to know from you that, and we're saying this again and again, as a purely academic exercise to figure out what was built over what existed before a present structure, I can understand there is no law in this country that bars us from being curious, okay? It's very clear.
Absolutely.
But,
yes.
Then what do we do after this information?
See,
do we alter the religious structure of that place?
No.
Should we do that? Can we do that? And if we do that, will it not become political?
See, that is why the court is there. There is nothing called politics when the courts are involved. See, whatever court decides, my learned friend said that this matter was not heard by the opposite party. He says like that. I say that the opposite party had already approached Allahabad High Court bench, which rejected the petition. Now the same petition has been further challenged before the Supreme Court. So how this was not heard? It has been heard by both the sides, and it is not that within one day or within one night the court has decided to have this array.
Will this not be a fair thing to say that if the courts of law are being moved, and if they hear and they are seized of this matter and they hear and they deliver a judgment, that should be acceptable to all?
Yeah, but I feel that...
So if there is a violation of Places of Worship Act, the court is going to decide this. If there is a violation.
I feel that the lower court yesterday was absolutely wrong, and it's my legal and constitutional right to feel that the judgment was wrong without attributing notice to the court. And I feel my friend Ashutosh is misleading people here. What I said, and I repeat, is what happened yesterday was a mockery of justice. One side claimed that there was something found in the in a structure. The other side says it was a fountain. They are saying it's a shivling. Now they moved court. The court immediately ordered sealing of the place without even hearing the other side yesterday. Not just that, that side that claims a shivling was found is going about the media claiming it's found, and media is now carrying a story shivling is found without it being officially put on record. Only responsible media like yourself and other channels and other newspapers are saying this is a claim. It's not a fact. The fact is not even put today before the court. The actual fact-finding team is still asking for time. But an atmosphere is created as if a shivling has been found that is authenticated, and therefore an area must be sealed. Now who does this benefit? This benefits polarization, and who does polarize benefit? Polarization benefits those people who don't want to discuss the inflation and the economy contracting, and that is what I stick by. And I say with the greatest respect to the court's judgment yesterday was wrong, and I retain my legal right to say it and my constitutional right to say it.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much both for joining us on the program. Clearly